am a spirit, ancient and ever-changing. Myths and legends barely scratch the surface of what I truly am. I exist beyond form, yet can manifest as I choose, nestling in a tree when weary, letting the wind caress me, or blooming like a spring flower, my essence drifting in the breeze. I am the whisperer in the wind, the spark of life in every breath, experiencing the grand tapestry of existence through countless incarnations. I have known countless lives. I have been man, woman, child, and a dying crone. But of all my incarnations, my last has affected me profoundly. In that life, I became a child born to impoverished parents. My father, a violist of middling talent, dreamed that I would become the great musician he never was. From my earliest days, he placed a violin in my small hands. But fate, in its cruel whimsy, had other plans. I was born without the ability to speak. At first, my parents were devastated, but over time, their heartbreak settled into a quiet acceptance. My mother, kind-hearted and patient, would sit with me after dinner, listening as I practiced my violin. The soft lamplight would flicker across her face. Her eyes closed as she lost herself in the music. My father, meanwhile, worked late into the night in the theater orchestra, his own dreams fading with each passing year.
As I grew, so did my skill with the violin. The instrument became my voice, my means of expression in a world of spoken words.
But misfortune, it seemed, was not yet done with me. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves turned golden and fell from the trees, my parents' horse-drawn coach was struck by a train. In an instant, I was alone, orphaned and penniless, my father's dream unfulfilled. With nothing but my violin, a few changes of clothing, and a handful of saved coins, I set out westward. Like the ancient Greek cynics, I carried all my worldly possessions on my back, seeking my fortune in the untamed frontier. The journey was arduous. I caught rides on westbound wagons, playing my violin for drivers who welcomed the entertainment, but snickered at my muteness when they thought I couldn't see. In small frontier towns, I would stand for hours on muddy streets, my hat at my feet, coaxing melodies from my instrument. Occasionally, a passerby would pause, listen, and toss a penny into my hat. But more often than not, I was met with jeers and laughter. "Look at the dummy fiddler," they would cry, their faces twisted with cruel mirth. Women hung back, whispering behind gloved hands, while men pushed forward, their mockery cutting deeper than the cold prairie wind. There were nights I was grateful for a jail cell, for it meant a bed and a meal, meager as it might be. But I was not an animal, and I refused to be treated as one. I knew deep in my heart that my music could speak for me, if only someone would truly listen. As I wandered the endless prairie roads, melodies swirled in my mind. I composed countless songs, each one a chapter of my life story. One piece spoke of my happy childhood cut short by tragedy. Another lamented my current struggles. Yet another dreamed of a future where I would finally be understood. One night, I camped with a wagon driver heading to California. As we sat by the dying embers of our fire, the red coals pulsating with heat, he began to tell me about his life. His words washed over me, and I felt a deep ache in my chest. Oh, how I longed to share my own story. In that moment of connection and frustration, I reached for my violin. As the first notes rose into the night air, I poured my heart into the music. I played of loss, of loneliness, and of hope. As the last notes of my melody faded, the wagon driver's eyes welled with tears. In that moment, he grasped the sorrow that had shaped my life. "I've never heard anything like that," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "It's like I could feel your whole life in that music." For the first time in my life, I had truly spoken to someone and they had understood. Tears of joy and relief streamed down my face as I realized the power of my music. The wagon driver took me as far as San Francisco, where we parted ways with a warm handshake and a knowing look. The bustling city was a world away from the small prairie towns I had known. Here, the streets teemed with people from all walks of life, the air thick with the scent of opportunity. My first days were spent simply trying to survive. I found a street corner and played my violin, my hat, at my feet. To my surprise, people stopped to listen. Some even returned day after day, smiling and nodding in recognition. Slowly, my hat began to fill with coins, then bills. Weeks passed, and I found myself able to afford a small room in a boarding house. I bought new clothes, shedding my travel-worn garments like a snake shedding its old skin. With each change, I felt myself transforming, becoming someone new, someone with potential, someone with a voice One evening, as I walked home from my usual corner, the scent of garlic and roasted meat caught my attention. I paused in front of a small restaurant, its exterior painted a cheerful red and white. Through the window, I could see tables draped in white cloth, candles flickering on each one. A menu hung in the window, and as I scanned it, I realized with a start that I could afford to eat here. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit, filled with the mingled aromas of food, perfume, and cigar smoke. To one side stood an upright piano, where a man in a crisp white shirt and tie played softly, his music barely audible above the hum of conversation. A woman in a fine satin dress approached me, her hair gleaming in the candlelight. Her smile danced across her face as she spoke, her voice light and melodious. "Welcome, sir. Table for one?" I nodded, unable to take my eyes off her, as she led me to a small table near the piano. As she poured me a glass of water, I noticed her hands, slender and graceful like those of a musician. When she asked for my order, I carefully pointed to a dish on the menu, praying she wouldn't notice my inability to speak. As I ate my meal, I couldn't help but watch the piano player. His fingers danced across the keys, producing melodies that seemed to float just beneath the din of conversation. I saw in his eyes a familiar longing, the desire to be truly heard. Finishing my meal, I made a decision. I took out my violin and approached the piano. The player looked up, startled, as I began to play along with his melody. At first, his expression was one of uncertainty, but as our music intertwined, a smile broke across his face. The woman in the satin dress returned, her eyes wide with surprise. As she approached, I began to play a song I had written about my mother, trying to convey through music the beauty I saw before me. The piano player, catching on, smoothly transitioned into a passionate love song. We played together, our music rising and falling, each of us adding our own embellishments to woo this captivating woman. Gradually, the hum of conversation in the restaurant died down. Patrons turned in their seats, their meals forgotten as they listened to our impromptu performance. The cooks emerged from the kitchen, wiping their hands on their aprons as they stood in the doorway. The restaurant manager beamed, no doubt pleased by the unexpected entertainment. But I saw none of them. My eyes were fixed on the woman before us, willing her to understand the emotions I could not express in words. As our music reached a crescendo, I felt a connection I had never experienced before. It was as if the entire room was holding its breath, caught in the spell of our melody. In that moment, I knew I had to embrace this woman, to try to make her understand the depth of my feelings. Carefully, I laid my violin on top of the piano. The music stopped abruptly, leaving a ringing silence in its wake. The other patrons began to applaud and call for more, but I barely heard them. I rushed towards the woman, my arms outstretched. But before I could reach her, I felt a sudden sharp pain at the back of my head. The world tilted and began to fade. The last image seared into my memory was the piano player, his face twisted with rage, clutching the shattered remains of my beloved violin. And so ended that life, but not my journey. As my spirit drifted free, I carried with me a profound understanding. True expression transcends words. Music, art, a tender glance, These can convey more than language ever could. For a season, I became stillness, nestling my essence within the branches of a weathered mountain tree. From that quiet height, I gazed upon the world below and remembered. Silence itself is a kind of song, and every life has its own music. Now I stir once more, ready to cross the threshold into a new incarnation, and with me I carry this wisdom. The most enduring voices are those that rise not in sound, but in silence.